Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to a new tutorial. Today we're going to be creating the character of Deer Skull.
You walk into my darkness. I've waited through eons. The ash remembers, and it whispers your name.
To make Deer Skull, we're going to use a bunch of different programs such as Unreal Engine, Blender, Marvelous Designer, Substance Painter, and as I said it, we're going to use just a little bit of AI. It's gonna be okay, it's just for the modeling. It's just to model the skull and antlers because I am so bad at modeling. I'm just going to use a little AI to model it. We're gonna see how it turns out. I don't know, we'll see how it goes. We'll see. So all that said, the very first thing we're going to do is create the skull, the deer skull and antlers. So to do that, we will use AI. Let's jump in. The AI software that I'm going to use is called Meshify.ai. You get a couple free uses out of it before you have to pay for it. So let's come up here and jump to I want to use text to 3D to generate 3D models from prompts. Describe it. Let's call it a deer skull. Create a model of a deer skull. All right, let's see what it comes up with. Okay, some of these are pretty cool. So these look pretty cool. I came up with some pretty cool variations. This one's wacky. I don't like that one. This one's pretty weird. Ugh. This one's really blocky, which is weird. It's got some weird middle horn thing going on. But this is the most cool normal one. Texture, no texture. I don't need any textures for this because I'm going to texture this myself. Okay. That's pretty cool, you know. Not bad, okay. Cool wireframe. So, all I gotta do is come down to download and download it. And resize, no, I don't need anything. Now that we have that, let's go ahead and open up Blender here. Let's import our downloaded. Oh yeah, so I picked this one. I picked a slightly different one because I thought this one was cooler. I did the regeneration a few times and I picked this one. So I'm gonna raise this up. Let's rotate this guy. Let's try to, we've got a really high triangle count right now. So let's add a modifier and we're going to decimate this. Try 0.5. Not bad. Takes us down to that, okay. Feels good. I think it's time now to alter the horns here a little bit. Make them look a little rougher, I'd say. They look a little different now, which is fun. I'm gonna get this skull ready to export it for texturing. I'm just gonna do this because I'm lazy. I use this packing software that I really like, which is pretty dope. And look at that, that stuff's pretty efficiently packed to me. So now the next steps are I want to assign this some layers. So give it just its base layer. We'll call this skull. Then we're gonna make horns. So for skull, okay. I think we got it. Not bad. Now let's center out all these rotations and the scale. This looks pretty good. So I'm going to come up here to File, Export, and export as an FBX, and export. All right, there it is. All right, now that we have created our deer skull mesh with a little help from AI and prepared it for texturing, let's jump into Substance Painter. Pirate's life for me. All right, first thing, let's go up to new. Demo, yeah, 2K is fine. All right, there he is. So first things first, we're gonna come up here and bake this. Just give it 2K. All right, now that we have baked it, let's do a little texturing of the skull first. So let me just pull up here a deer skull. Let's just get a good look at one. What's one that looks pro? This one's pretty cool. So it's like kind of like a bone-ish thing going on, and then some dirt. Okay. I think that, ooh, there's a creature teeth. Look at that. That looks pretty much like bone to me. Let's drag this guy in. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. That's pretty good. Straight off the bat. Looks pretty creepy. We may have to up these textures to 4K. Yeah, there we go. Looks a lot better. Okay. Let's drag Dirt Dusty in. I'm gonna change this to some red. It's kind of fun. Got some blood splattered on him. Like that. Okay, now for the next step, let's go ahead and get our horns all good here. So I'm gonna come up here. The horns kind of look the same, so I might just start with a similar. Let's go back to our creature teeth. All right. That looks pretty good. All right, there we go. Looks pretty good to me. I'm gonna come up to File and Export Textures. Make sure they're 4K. Let's go ahead and export them. Thank you, Mr. Deer Skull. Now that we've created the deer skull, let's go ahead and create the reference human in Unreal Engine that we're going to use to parent the skull to and use for animation and Marvelous Designer purposes also. All right, let's jump in. In Unreal Engine, I'm going to create our Metahuman. Let's come down to Metahuman, Metahuman character. Call this deer skull. All right, so let's go to the body. Make him real tall. Real tall. Scary tall. Make him real buff too, real buff and tall. Let's create this rig. Let's assemble this guy. All right, here's our big boy himself. Yes, sir. A big boy, big boy. Let's come over and import our textures and deer skull. Let's drag all of this in, because why not? Import our static mesh. Let's come up to our, make a new material. Let's call this skull matte. Alright. Throw our base color in. Let's throw our normal in. So I like to remember that these go reverse. So red is ambient occlusion, green is roughness, and blue is metallic. Yep. Let's apply that. I'm going to create a new material. What do you call this one? Horns. Matte. Let's drag in these guys. Good to know. Alright. There we go. Now, let's make a material instance of both of these. Alright, everything's looking pretty good there. Open up our blueprint here. Let's call this deer skull. Great. And we're going to add this to our face. Come over here. We're going to select deer skull. Yep, there it is. It's a little big. Let's scale this down. 0.4. And then for parent socket, I'm going to select and I'm going to type in head. Alright. Alright, so it popped up there. Let's see if we can't get this thing situated a little bit here. Alright, let's compile. There's the one over here. Okay. Alright, now that we have our deer skull on our deer skull metahuman character, let's go ahead and create his deer skull cloak. I need to come back into my metahuman character creator. We need to export our combined skeletal mesh. I'm just going to come up to our content browser and grab our skeletal mesh, come down to asset actions and export. And let's go ahead and save that combined mesh. All we need, I really want, is just the static mesh. So just keep that. I don't need any of the animation. All right, let's jump into Marvelous Designer. Now that we're in Marvelous Designer, let's import our FBX. Now that we have imported our metahuman into Marvelous Designer, let's just make sure he's got his, yep, great. Make sure he's got that, great. He's got his fitting suit and bounty box. So let's go up and make a shirt here. And for this one, put this one like right there. This one, let's put this one. Pull this down and out. Just pull this down a bunch. Pull this down a lot. Let's pull this out. Absolutely massive muscles right now. So let's maybe let's expand him a little bit here. Okay. We really got like this priest character coming along. Let's get a cool little fit going on, little robe fit. I love it. Put a wall on there and trash all these other ones. We're gonna call this Cloak. And then let's come up here to the UV editor. Let's come up and pack it first. Alright, it's all packed in, and now we can fit it. We got our outfit ready to be textured. Alright, so I'm going to come up here and export as FBX. Alright, a single object. Yep, I want it to be welded and thin. I definitely want the UV coordinates. Keep these at 4096. Just want the diffuse, the normal, and the roughness. Alright, I don't want the avatars. Alright, there we go. Looks great to me. Alright, let's jump back into Unreal Engine here. Make sure that cloak worked how we want it to. Import that with no skeleton. Yep, there's our cloak looking pretty thin. Now that we've imported this static mesh of the cloak, I'm going to right click and come down to convert to skeletal mesh. I'm going to search for the skeleton here. Let's open up this skeletal mesh. That's totally livable. So let's come up to edit weights. And I'm going to come down here. I'm going to transfer. I'm going to select the deer skull again. Combine mesh. Click transfer these weights from this guy to this one. There we go. All right, let's accept that. So now if we come up to this guy here, I'm going to let's add this skeletal mesh. There we go. All right, there's our cloak on our boy. Let's go ahead and compile. All right, now that we have created our clothes in Marvelous Designer, let's go ahead and jump into Substance Painter and texture our cloak as well. All right, so I'm gonna come up here and file. Let's just make a new, and let's select our cloak. Now that we got our cloak here, let's just go ahead and bake it real quick. And I think at first I'm just going to add a very basic layer here. Fabric pattern. Just because I like that dirt texture. I might add a little blood to it. I like these blood splashes. These are pretty fun. Ooh, I like it. All right, let's export it. All right, our cloak is exported. I'm gonna save this. Just gonna import these 3 textures. Let's go ahead and make a new material. We'll call this Cloak Mat. Let's drag in our 3 cloak texture, or 3 cloak textures. All right, link them all up correctly. Boom, boom, boom. Let's apply. I'm going to come up to Cloak Mat and create a material instance of this. And then we come back to our cloak. Let's select the Cloak Mat. All right, it looks really shiny. Those textures are exported. Let's come back into here and I'm gonna right click on these and I'm gonna click on re-import. We're a little less shiny, which is great. Come back into our Cloak Mat and just make sure that 2-sided is enabled. Now that the cloak textures are in Unreal Engine, I'm going to apply some cloth physics to the cloak to get it to simulate better and clean up the weight painting a little bit. So we got a few weight issues, so let's jump in here and see if we can't resolve those issues. Let's jump into the skeletal mesh here. And we're gonna come into the paint maps. Okay, all that we're gonna do to fix these weights is really quick. I'm gonna move this arm out a little bit. And I'm going to come down here to our editing tools. Make sure we're in relax mode. We're gonna come over here to all these guys. We're going to shift and click on all these. All right, it's a little better. It's not perfect, but as I said, we're gonna be doing cloth physics for it. So let's go ahead and do that right now. Again, I'm gonna right click on this. I'm gonna come down here to physics, new cloth asset. Let's call this deer. Great. Double click on that. Ton of stuff. I'm not really gonna touch any of this. Everyone gets mad when I don't touch any of this, but I'm sorry. I don't really want to right now. I'm gonna delete all of this stuff. I'm gonna do skeletal mesh import. Great, and then I'm gonna drag out into weight, simulation, default config, simulation max distance.
Physics asset, because that one we are going to be needing, and then we are going to finally go into a pod simulation.
I'm going to add a set physics asset, and then I'm going to end it with a cloth asset terminal. Alright, I'm going to select my skeletal mesh of... Alright, finished loading. There we go.
First, we're going to record some animation for the deer skull character to have. We're going to record some motion capture. I'm going to do that with my webcam that I have hooked up in my office here. And then we're going to process it in the motion capture software called Marionette. Let's jump over to the motion capture camera. That was it. We just recorded the mocap. Let's jump into Marionette and process that animation. All right, so I'm gonna open up Marionette here and import our video. All right, let's go to our calibration spot. I'll do a little fake calibration. All right, there we go. I set the in and out points, and then we will drop this down here and let this render. All right, so it's finished processing. So I'm just gonna come over here and clean this motion for a little bit. Gonna run this real quick. All right, it is finished. Now let's take a look. Okay, those foot locks look pretty good. we're gonna come down to export. There are only one clip. It is not a T-pose. I'm gonna export this. And that'll export the FBX of the deer skull animation. All right, let's jump back into Unreal Engine here. Grab our deer skull animation that we just made. We're gonna drag it in. And we're gonna make sure that there's no skeleton selected. We do want to import the animation, and we do want to import all that. Okay, great. Okay. Here's our animation sequence that we just created. All right, now that we've imported, our last step that we're gonna do here is I'm gonna right click on this animation and come down to retarget animation. I'm going to select our deer skull combined skeletal mesh that we made. There he is. And then I'm gonna come down, I'm gonna search for deer skull anim. And here's our big boy doing our animation. All right, I'm gonna export this. Now that we have captured, recorded, processed, and imported our animation for our deer skull character, next step is to create the cloth physics assets for the cloak. All right, so we're back in this, back in our weight paint. So I've just weight painted this very easily with the gradient brush here. So I'm gonna come up here to our skeletal mesh, select deer skull guy there. I'm gonna select our animation here. So I feel pretty good about this. Really simple, really straightforward. I hate cloth physics, I realized, so that was no fun. Cloth physics are no fun. So, and now let's apply this cloth asset. So I'm gonna come up here to my body character and I'm gonna add a cloth, chaos cloth component, and we're gonna call this cloak. And then because we have the cloak, so I can delete the skeleton, I'm gonna come up here and scroll down to, we just gotta come down here under the asset and we're gonna add the deer skull cloak that we just made. Come over to our viewport. There it is. Going to compile. There we go. And I'm gonna save this. All right, so I'm just gonna use this cool kind of old mine shaft and kind of throw them in the back there, so yeah. So I've downloaded the mine. Let's open up the map here. All right, here we are in this little level scene. This is pretty cool. Let's go drag in our metahuman of deer skull here. Drop him right in. I'm going to create a timeline, a new level sequence here. Let's call this deer skull demo 1. Let's go ahead and add our deer skull actor here. Going to add a camera at this point. I'm gonna scoot our deer skull character back. Good bit. I'm gonna add this camera to our sequence. I want this light to be kind of like really warm, orange. All right, let me add the animation to our body here. Cool. All right, so our animation is placed. I'm gonna add a little bit of movement to this camera now along its axis. I'm going to put the location and rotation keyframes down. I'm gonna come to the end here. I wanna do a little move here, just a really subtle move. Actually, let's go back to the top. Let's come even lower. I'm gonna punch it too. Let's go to a 50 here. Let's go to a 4. Okay, I'm gonna start start right about there. And come to the end of this. I want us to end right about there. These all need to be linear. Oh wait, you guys can't see any of that. Oh, that sucks. All the balls, I'm sorry. Alright, so we got this nice little camera movement happening now. Set our focal plane. Cool. Let's go ahead and save. Alright, now what I want to do next, I want to add 2 little glowing highlights to our deer skull character. So I'm going to come up here actually. I'm going to reopen this blueprint here. And I want to come in here. And I'm going to add a point light. Put it right there. I'm going to make this a really red color. Alright, so I've added the point light to the face. Alright, and now I'm going to duplicate this and put it on the other eye. Alright, there we go. So I'm going to close this. And that looks pretty cool. It's got some cool reflections going on in there. Alright, next step is, before we render this, I have to I want to hide the actual body mesh. So I'm going to come here. I'm going to come down here to rendering. I'm going to turn on hidden in game for the skeletal mesh. Cool. Alright, so now that we've hidden that in the renderer, I'm going to come up here to our movie render queue, and I'm going to set up the output real quick. Let's create this to 4K, which would be 3840, and this is 2160. And I'm not going to do a JPEG sequence. I'm actually just going to go straight to H.264. All right, let's turn that all the way up just real quick. I don't need to do anything fancy here for this. This is just a quick little render example. All right, that's it. That's the full tutorial of the Deer Skull character. We've gone across various different programs, various different disciplines, and they all culminate together to create a creative idea. So I hope you maybe learned something, enjoyed the process. So yeah, I hope you guys learned something. That was the full process of creating the Deer Skull character. I hope you learned something. I'm going to be creating more videos that are hopefully just creative inspirations. So yeah, this was fun for me, and this was fun for me. I hope you learned something. And let me know what else you want me to make. I got some stuff in the pipeline, but I'll see you soon.